Thanks for watching New Garden Road. It's where I share my love of gardening with you in a way that I hope will inform, inspire, and elevate your earthly self. Today I'm going to talk about how I like to build my raised garden beds. Some things to consider if you are trying to decide on whether you should build a raised garden bed would be things like your soil type. Is it a heavy clay soil? Is it a rocky soil? In a lot of yards, native soil has been disturbed or turned over or compacted through the years from construction or foot traffic. I have a heavy clay soil, so I chose to till and cultivate the soil below the bed. To enhance the soil conditions, it is a good medium to start working with. It needs a lot of organic matter. So what I like to do is I like to till below the soil level about 4 to 6 inches. I tilled below the soil level about 4 to 6 inches. I've worked in some expanded shale, some coffee chaff, just to give it a lighter, fluffier element in there. I've also added a bunch of compost. It's important to choose an untreated lumber. That lumber is going to be next to the soil where you'll have your food sources growing. You don't want to have any leaching of chemicals or things like that. I like to use a all-natural red cedar. This time I've chosen a 2x8 cedar that's a little bit thicker than I've used in the past. What will happen over time, they will start to decay on the inside and the base of the lumber just over the course of time with biological activity as well as moisture. Those things will break down that lumber. Yeah, so basically the screws aren't able to hold anymore. It's splayed apart, the soil's pushed it out further, and along with that, if you pull it up, you can kind of see the wood has deteriorated significantly. So it's time to rebuild this bed, and I'm going to use some cedar again, but this time I've chosen some 2x8 cedar. It's going to be much thicker. I think that it will last me as long as this bed lasted me, hopefully a little bit longer. Either way, it's pretty good looking stuff. It's all natural, like I said, no pesticides or treatment involved in the lumber, so I feel good about putting it in my vegetable garden next to the things that I'm going to be eating. That's real important. Okay, so I like to keep it pretty simple in terms of the construction of my beds. I've got my lumber cut to length, so I have 2 4-foot pieces and I have 2 8-foot pieces. You're going to need some deck screws and a drill driver. I'm just driving the deck screws directly into the lumber to make a 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed. You can rest easy in the fact that you've chosen something all natural, untreated, and you're growing your food organically. When you choose to build a raised garden bed, you can control the soil much more closely. The soil is something that you want to view as alive. It's just like another plant. in essence, the healthier your soil, the healthier your plants are. So if you've got access to some good amendments, or you have the ability to build a soil, you would have something from start to finish that you would know exactly what was going into it, and that's where you're going to be growing your food. So that's a nice thing to consider. All right, what do you fill the bed with? You've got it constructed, you've got the soil prepared the way you like. I like to use a finished garden soil. You may be able to build that in your backyard with some existing soil and some compost and some other amendments. You may just be able to layer organic matter and build it over time. It can take some time to build a healthy garden soil. If you have access to a good soil, then you can fill that bed right up. Add some fertilizer, and I would recommend planting a cover crop for the first season if you have time. That'll just allow the soil to mature. Alright, when you've completed your raised bed garden, you've got it filled with soil, I recommend adding a good layer of mulch outside the box as a buffer zone. This will help keep weeds at bay. You're going to have to manage those long term, but if you can put a good 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch out 2 feet from your garden bed, then that will help give you a buffer zone. It'll also be a nice finished look to your raised garden bed. I also like my raised garden beds because they're a little bit easier on my back. Raised garden beds are great for gardening in small spaces. You might not have a lot of area that you can garden in. You can build a raised garden bed and grow a lot of food. I think another big reason I like the raised gardens is just the aesthetics and the looks. To me, it's nice and organized, and I can walk through it. I can maintain the pathways. Okay, remember, the soil is alive. It's just like a plant. You want to take care of it, you want to nurture it, you want to feed it. That soil is going to feed those plants that you're growing for food, and that's in turn going to feed you. It's real important that we care for our soil. You want to make sure it's got something growing in it at all times. If you have several raised beds and you're not using one, you could add a thick layer of dried leaves or grass clippings, or you could even plant a cover crop, which would be even better. Those can help provide extra nitrogen to the soil long term. You may have heard the term green manure. That's when at the end of the season you'll till those crops into the soil. That might not be practical for a raised garden bed, but still, if you've got something growing in there, those roots are providing a system for life and biology and microbes and bacteria, and that's all going to be healthy to the overall structure of your soil. So that is how I like to build my raised garden beds. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some tips. You can do this a lot of different ways. You can use cinder blocks, you can use rocks, you can get creative. Some people used wine bottles turned upside down, buried into the ground. You know, check it out. There's a lot of different materials that you can use to build your raised garden bed. But if you're interested, I recommend it. It's highly rewarding, productive. I built about 20 or 30 of them in my time and probably gone way overboard, but that's how much I love it. So you want to build a raised bed? Go for it. Alright, thanks for watching my video. Please leave me a question or comment below and subscribe to my page.